African people who think Europeans are better than them. Somebody taught me how to love being black or how to love being dark skinned, okay? When we talk about slavery, people think about something or a practice that have ended maybe 100 years ago. But still, what if I told you that slavery in Africa is still something that still happens up to date? Slavery in Africa never ended, and I don't think it's gonna be ending anytime soon. And when you think about that, you may think about how people have been talking about, and I have been one of those people who have talked about exploitation of resources from African countries. But what if I told you that is not the only problem that we are having, okay? The other problem that we are having is like the colonial history and the things that the colonizers did to African countries. That mindset is still with us, okay? The colonizers, the Europeans presented themselves to be more powerful, to be more educated, to be more civilized than Africans or than the black men, but that mentality is still with us, okay? So those values that were instilled on Africans, and this is where we are going to talk about, like, slavery is not even about owning of bodies, it's not about auction, it's not about chains. It's about that when you think about it when it comes to transatlantic slave trade. But the slavery that I'm talking about is the slavery that have happened to Africans' mind. That's why I'm talking about slavery never ended in Africa, and I don't think it's gonna be ending anytime soon, okay? When you look at in African countries, when you look at the type of jobs or the type of bosses that are out here in African countries, the biggest tragedy of colonization wasn't that Africans were controlled by outsiders. Is that, like, the mentality and the mindset and the values that they used to control Africans that is still happening right now, okay? Now we have had the 1% African people who have been that are doing well financially, and the 1% that is the rich one. We have this group right here. Now they've become the colonizers, and then we have this other group right here. So we have the poor group right here, and we have those who are doing good right here, okay? And the ones that are doing good are literally controlling the ones that are doing bad, okay? So one of the biggest tragedy of colonization is not even colonization itself, is the impact that it's had on Africans and Africans' mind, okay? And I have talked about on this channel, you guys, you can look for that video. I have talked about the effects of colonization, or like how colonization still affects Africa to date. And I have also talked about Africans' mindset, okay? And when I talk about Africans, I'm also talking about myself, because I'm part and parcel of the society and the community, okay? So I've talked about the way black people are still racist towards themselves. I've talked about the way black people think that, and I'm gonna talk about black when I talk about Africans in the same sense. We all think that, like, when it comes to Europeans or to foreigners, we think that they are literally better than us, and it have showed so much when it comes to self-hate. Even when you look at the self-hate that people portray today, I've seen so many Africans complain and make videos about being disrespected by the West. For example, we have the whole Ebola thing that's going on in Kenya. I know most of us have heard the news that, like, they're gonna set up a quarantine place in Kenya, where they're gonna be transporting Americans so that the disease cannot get to United States, okay? Like, I just find that ridiculous, because when you think about it, Kenya does not have Ebola by right now, okay? But can you imagine somebody's talking about that they're gonna set up a quarantine place in a country that doesn't have the disease? Like, it's like you're transporting the disease to this place, okay? And our whole president agreeing to that is literally insane. And this just also proves what I'm talking about, that, like, even the people that we've elected, the 1% that's up there, they also don't believe in themselves, which means they are intimidated by anybody, okay? They want to be controlled because they don't think that they are superior than these presidents. The same way that an African president or a Kenyan president is a president, that's the same way that a president, like, for example, President Macron of France, that's the same way that he's a president, okay? He might be controlling a bigger economy, he might be controlling a powerful country, but it's still the same way, okay? I think Africans have continued to treat each other with disrespect, and that's why I'm even talking about slavery never ended in Africa, okay? Can you imagine, like, a whole president, somebody that have been elected to represent a country, wanting to even bring a whole disease to a country that doesn't even have a disease? So see, the mindset, that's what I'm talking about. Slavery is a mindset, okay? Another thing that I wanted to talk about is, like, the most disrespectful bosses are not actually Europeans, okay? They're not actually Europeans. The worst boss that you'll ever have I'm sorry to tell you that it might be a fellow African, okay? The worst boss that you'll ever have will be an African, okay? The person who will mistreat you, treat you with a lot of disrespect, look down upon you, tell you that you are a nobody, you're poor, you deserve nothing good, that's gonna be an African, okay? The boss that's gonna pay you like not anything close to the minimum wage is gonna be African. It's not gonna be a European person, it's not gonna be a foreigner, okay? So I say that to say that like that's how we see slavery, okay? The whole mindset even about having house managers, which we call them maids out here, okay? When you see these Africans who are doing well financially and how they hire people from their villages and bring them to their houses and overwork them just to pay them just a few pennies, for example, just to pay them like $50 is literally insane, okay? During my teenage years, when I finished high school, out here we have primary school, we have high school, and then we have university. Okay, during the time that I went to school, it's not long ago, but they have changed the system of education, okay? But so it's literally like elementary, high school, and then university. So that's what we have, the system of education. So when I finished my high school education, I got hired by somebody. I knew them through their mom in the village or somebody. So I got hired. I don't want to tell their story so much. So I got hired. But then I didn't think that people would be so much inhumane. Like, I was being paid, literally, I think it was like $56 or something, okay? And I was supposed to be taking care of a child and blah, blah, blah. I knew the terms of the job. But it was literally insane that at night I'm being given this huge task. It's in the middle of the night, the time that I should be shutting down, preparing for tomorrow's work. I was being given this huge task, okay? But I only lasted in that house for 2 days. Why? Because I refused. Even at a young age, I still knew that, like, you know what? I refuse to be disrespected just because I don't have money. I refuse to be made a slave just because I don't have money. So I made that phone call, and long story short, I was out of there. She was so surprised. I think maybe this is somebody who's been used to like taking advantage of people, and for the first time in her life she came across a young girl who literally needed money. But I didn't see the importance of money at that point. Not to mention, like, can you imagine the whole day I was there, I was not being told to do this task, and then in the middle of the night, that's when I'm being told you're supposed to do this task, okay? And I bring up that story to show you how even house managers are mistreated. So slavery never ended, okay? Is still here with us, is still gonna be here until we stop that mentality of being slaves ourselves, until we stop that mentality of looking down on ourselves. Slavery is gonna be here for a long time. We see slavery in the way like, for example, somebody with an American accent is literally admired, but somebody who is speaking like quote unquote African, somebody who is, let's say somebody who is not even consistent with their English, somebody who keep like mispronouncing the words, they can't maybe construct a sentence. We see it in the way they are seen to be uncivilized, while somebody who is fluent and consistent in their English, they are seen to be quote unquote civilized, okay? We see it in the way we look down upon our languages, okay? We see it in the way where somebody starts a business where they are making something that's local, okay? So we see it in the way that local brands or local businesses are not promoted, they're looked down upon, while anything that's foreign, it doesn't matter if it's better than what we are creating out here. As far as it's foreign, it's seen to be better than what we can literally be able to produce. But do I blame people who think like that? I've been there before, okay? And I think I did talk about my story about of course I grew up as a dark-skinned girl, so at some point I was just feeling so insecure about how I looked as a black girl, because I feel like everybody, no, of course there's black people, but there's black people who are lighter skinned, okay? So I feel like everybody adored and treasured people who are like lighter skinned. And at some point during my teenage time, or of course during my junior years in university, I kind of felt like I had to do something about my skin. Like me being black, I don't feel like that was being dark, not being black. Me being dark was not being embraced like it should have been. And I think the best thing that I ever did now as an adult, and that I've been on myself, is literally to love who I am, to love my skin. Because first of all, like, I just can't even believe that like we have learned this whole thing about being black not being nice from our parents, we've learned from our neighbors, we've learned from our relatives, is literally insane. Because honestly, I wish somebody taught me how to love being black or how to love being dark skin, okay? And this is the other thing that I'm talking about, slavery, okay? And I keep wanting to say that it's not that like the European person was better than the African person. It's just that the African people never felt like they were enough. And that's where the real problem is. Even up to date, I'm gonna tell us for sure, up to date, African people still don't feel like they are better, okay? And that's it. There's a problem. Yeah, because this is literally projecting, okay? We keep saying that European people think that they are better than Africans, but to be really honest, it's actually the African people who think Europeans are better than them. There's nothing as bad as self-hate, okay? Because you keep teaching it from one generation to another, okay? And if you teach your children that they're not good enough because they are black, unless they do the self-work of like teaching themselves and telling themselves that they're good enough, they're not gonna be good enough. Not for you, not for anyone, not for themselves, okay? And they're going to pass that down, unfortunately. So the uncomfortable thing that, or the thing that we need to question is, did colonialism teach Africans to see through somebody else's eyes? Did colonialism teach Africans not to love themselves? Did colonialism teach Africans how to enslave each other, okay? Did colonialism teach Africans how to not like themselves and not to like each other, okay? I think that's the real question that we literally need to ask. Because if you spend your whole life being told that civilization, intelligence, power, beauty, good life, soft life, if you spend your whole entire life being told that that belongs to somebody else, I think eventually you do start believing it, okay? I grew up being told that like good life, softness, a life of ease belongs to a particular group of people, okay? And then for us, we're just supposed to struggle, you're just supposed to suffer. No, like literally. And that even limits your, what is it called, you being industrious. You cannot even be industrious because you're being told that this is just how you're supposed to live because you're African, okay? So I think I want to throw this challenge to everybody who have been enabling slavery. I'm not saying that I've not been enabling that to date, like modern day slavery, but I think we need to work on how we see ourselves, because that's where we start the journey of healing. That's where we start the journey of like becoming better. And my last video, I was talking about why Africa is considered to be pretty primitive. You guys, most of you liked it, and you guys gave me your comments. I did like some people said that like they don't see Africa as primitive. They see it as somewhere that's different, okay? All places cannot look similar, okay? So in this video, let me know your opinion. Do you agree with me that slavery never ended in Africa? What can be done so that slavery can end in Africa, okay? And I want to make it clear, slavery that goes on in Africa right now is not encouraged by foreigners, it's not encouraged by Europeans, it's not encouraged by Asians, it's encouraged by African themselves. African themselves are practicing modern day slavery, okay? Thank you so much for watching. If you watched up to this level, kindly subscribe and hit that like button. Please share the video so that we can keep growing and talking about Africans and black people and black people at large, okay? Bye bye.